This is The Bottom Line, a show designed to help Australian businesses succeed. On the show, you'll hear from leading Australian business owners as they share the lessons they've learned building their companies. You'll learn from their successes as well as some of the challenges they faced along the way. We also talk to experts from a range of fields who share specialised techniques you can use to improve your business. I'm your host, Savan Tuna, and I'm a director at Alexander Spencer, and I'm really passionate about helping Australian businesses succeed. Change is inevitable, but how leaders and organisations respond to it can make or break their success. In today's fast-paced world, adaptability is the key to long-term survival and growth. So what separates organisations that thrive during transformation from those that struggle to keep up? Joining us on The Bottom Line is Friska Wirya, a leading voice in change management and organisational transformation. Friska has worked with some of the biggest companies, guiding them through leadership transformations and change initiatives. In this episode, we'll dive into what truly distinguishes successful leadership transformation from failed attempts, the biggest myths about managing change, and powerful real-life stories where transformation has either propelled a company forward or led to its downfall. Let's jump in. Friska, welcome to The Bottom Line.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited. I love talking to entrepreneurs, but not only that, talking to people that talk about leadership, change management, human behavior. There are a lot of things to cover today and really want to get deep into that. But before we do, for those that don't know you or don't follow you on the socials, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you sort of come to doing what you do.
Basically, I'm obsessed with all things change. So I'm a change management consultant, I'm an advisor, I'm a keynote speaker. My bread and butter is helping leaders of global organizations make big changes to how they operate. So they usually revolve around digital transformations, implementing new and emerging technologies, culture change, restructures, mergers and acquisitions. I've spoken at quite a few conferences. So UN Women Australia was one of them, Salesforce, Microsoft, etc. I also run a lot of workshops. So imparting the knowledge, the skill sets, not just about change, but about cross-cultural communication, influencing without authority, etc., etc. I'm also a 2-time #1 best-selling author, so I've published 2 books on change, innovation, and disruption. And my latest creation is a card game. It's called Future Talk, to encourage more raw, real, and honest conversations about disruption that's happening in your business.
And take us through the journey. Obviously, you didn't finish university and get straight into change management being a speaker.
Yeah.
There must have been some real life experience there from a corporate perspective. Where did you gain majority of your experiences and what sort of really large end projects did you work on before you ended up taking the plunge and going out on your own?
So I had just started my MBA and I relocated back to Australia from the US. So I did my undergrad in LA. And change management was only starting to be recognized as a discipline. I was in general management consulting and I was really bored because I need a few different things going on at the same time. In terms of corporate experience before I branched into workshops, training, etc., most of it has been Melbourne-based. So I was global change leader at Worley, a huge engineering company, now about 70,000 people. And I was head of change at Newcrest Mining on St Kilda Road there. So that was implementing AI, predictive algorithms, optimization models across many different countries, Indonesia, Australia, Papua New Guinea, Canada. And after that contract came to an end, I wanted more control over where, when, and how much I worked. And that's when I decided to start my own business because I didn't want to look back when I was 60 and wonder what if? What if I took the path less traveled and took on the challenge to create something out of nothing? So that's how it all started.
Amazing. And what was that initial journey like? Obviously, being in a big corporate, you've obviously got all the education behind the scenes with all your undergraduate and postgraduate degrees. What was it like when you first weren't getting the salary in that first month and you're out on your own? How did you feel and how did you navigate through that process from corporate to being a business owner?
Yeah, it's my first business and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was like, hey, where's my big fat salary every month? That's kind of disappeared. I realized I had to stop listening to the wrong people that had good intentions, but had actually never done what I was trying to do. So a lot of my ex-colleagues were like, hey, I saw this job, you'd be perfect for it. And 2 months in, they're like, are you making any money yet? It made me feel like shit, to be honest. And I realized that business ownership is not a linear path, and you can't compare a regular salary to the path that I was embarking on now. So I sought other people who were like me, and I got advice from them, and that's how it all started, really. And I think that's a good principle of life, full stop. Like, some people are speaking from open wounds instead of healed scars. So you really need to pay attention whose feedback and whose advice you take on board.
Love that. So for those that are not familiar with the management consulting world around change management and what change management means, to simplify it, what is change management? And when you get involved in consulting work in change, what does that really mean?
So change management in a nutshell is the discipline that helps prepare, support, and equip people to transition from what they're doing now to what they need to be doing tomorrow. So a great example is maybe a company announces their 2030 strategy. That 2030 strategy relies on people doing things differently. So that process, that transition of thinking different, being different, doing different things is what I manage. And the ROI of change is how engaged people are, how productive they are, morale. And really, if it's, for example, a technology change, adoption is an easy metric to see whether it's successful or not.
And every organization will at some point face leadership change. In your experience, what distinguishes successful leadership transformation from the ones that fail? Because I feel like you have, a lot of the CEOs at the top end, when you have the executive level, your role as a leader and in the sort of top side is that, you set the vision, the purpose, and it comes top down and obviously can go bottom up. But when leadership changes, where do you see successful change being managed when there's a leadership handover?
It's not just when there's a leadership handover, but if you're handing over during turbulent times, it requires a different sort of leadership. So leading people through change and disruption, it's not a one-time event. You don't just announce it at a town hall and go back to your corner office. You actually need to roll up your sleeves. You need to be seen, not just at the beginning, but throughout. I find more and more leaders are expected to be great role models and communicators. So really, that's what sets great change leaders from the mediocre ones apart. They actually live it, they practice it, they don't just profess it. It's not just words on a wall. You see them in action.
And why do you think we get resistance from change? Obviously, it's not something that can be easily done where you change a process, change a system, or even change the path of a direction of a company. All of that is different.
Yep,
So
100%.
change generally means different.
Yep.
Why do we get pushback from humans that they get this scary thing about it? Why does that happen?
Well, first of all, it is a natural reaction to change. Like, don't feel bad or that you failed. It's just a self-protection mechanism that has been embedded in human nature since the prehistoric era, right? Very useful when we were being chased by dinosaurs to avoid the new and the foreign. But now it's not so much. And really, people push back on change because they're scared of losing something. Who the hell wants to lose, right? And it's one of these 6 Ps. They're scared of losing their power. They're scared of losing their position. They're scared of losing their pay. They're scared of losing performance. Does it make them look stupid? They're scared of losing protection. And last but not least, they're scared of losing prestige. And prestige means different things to different people. Like, I've had people yelling at me this close.
Oh, wow.
Because they were losing their car parking privileges. I'm serious.
That is so true.
It could be because they used to have a budget of 5 million. Now it's gone to 1 million. They used to have a team of 50. Now it's gone to 10. So yeah, one of those 6 Ps or more, people are scared of losing, and that's why they're digging their heels in.
Yeah.
Like, is it going to make me look stupid? Is it going to shrink my role? Is my bonus at risk? Is it going to be harder for me to achieve the same level as performance? Is my best mate, who is actually my boss, is he being restructured out of the business? I don't want that. So all these things are happening in people's heads whenever a change is announced. And because historically, organizations have not been good at communicating with transparency and consistency, they make up stuff in their head. They make up worst case scenario.
Yeah, I feel like change is, when you say the word change and change management, we always think of these big haul changes, as in, maybe a new product launch or going into a completely different market, or like I said before, the whole CEO and the whole leadership group or the executive group's changing and there's some new people. But I feel like change happens all the time.
All the time.
And when you mentioned it with the car park, we're actually going through something at the moment. It's actually quite interesting. It's not even, I wouldn't have thought of this as change, but we're growing as a firm. We've moved into a new office and we've got some new people coming around. And we had to just rejig. We have a very fluid way of where we sit, but we had to rejig people into different spots. Oh my God, people were like distraught. They were moving to a new desk and someone else overheard and goes, it's only 3 meters away. Like it literally measured it. Like, why are these people? And I'm like, I know, but they like where they sit. The air conditioning hits them in the right spot. I don't know. But there was this anxiety. I didn't even think moving seats around because we were growing and moving some teams around. I guess we're always changing and evolving and tweaking. And there's an element of thinking around the big change that we only look at change at the big level. You can kind of probably apply these 6 Ps and thinking 100%. At the smaller level. Can you talk a little bit about that, how leaders need to be more aware of the psychological things that happen in humans and how we can get better at that?
That was a great word, aware. A lot of leaders aren't aware. So my last corporate experience, they were going through a big cost-cutting initiative, right? And the CFO thought he was being amazing and he's like, saving $60,000, cutting out the biscuits in the tea room, patting himself on the back, and the quarterly results, all the board members were like, oh, well done, well done. The amount of gossip that caused, like people bitching about the lack of Tim Tams, like hours every day, that lost productivity was hundreds of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands. So if you're a business owner and you're thinking about making changes within your business, even though you've got good intentions, even though it's a good news story, you need to communicate early. I can't stress that enough. Early. Get people's feedback because you sitting by yourself in a room cannot imagine the impacts. So in change, it's called a change impact discussion or a change impact workshops. So you invite people from different areas of your business to really identify how is this going to impact our people and culture? How's it going to impact our operations and technology, our systems, our customers? Because you yourself are not going to have all the answers. So get the brains trust in the room.
I love that. But I feel like a fair chunk of it is culture, and culture probably plays a huge role in the adaptability of the firm. If you do change well, I feel like these things at the front end when you're managing change, but over the years of having a really good culture in the business that you're hiring people that are adaptable or good communication, as you said, what can leaders do to shape their culture that sort of embraces an organization that just thrives in change, and how do we do that?
There's a really great company in Berlin called Blind Feed. Well, they were a startup. They got bought out and they instituted a ritual every single Friday called Fuck Up Fridays, where, as you can imagine, they celebrate mistakes, they celebrate failures, they celebrate things that go wrong. But it's not oh, woe is me, I was stupid, I did this. And the CEO goes first, by the way. And everybody really looks forward to that Friday because what does it do? It normalizes failure. People are not scared of getting things wrong. And most importantly, it refocuses them on what matters, which is what did they learn from it? What are they going to start doing differently? What are they going to stop doing differently? And notice I said the word ritual there. It's not a routine, right? Because the difference between a ritual and a routine, it's the mindset behind the action. It's the purpose, right? It's the meaning behind it. So people look forward to it. And now F Up Friday communities have sprung up all over the world. So if it's part of your culture, you need to celebrate it regularly. You need to talk about it. Don't just let it live through words on a wall. There needs to be some action behind it.
I love that. We have a Friday shout out, which is completely the opposite of Fuck Up Friday, which is where we try to, as a firm over the years, we hadn't really done celebrating success as well. So Friday, we start work at 4, we have a few drinks and so on, and as company announcements. But part of it is the whole team has the opportunity to shout out someone that did something great. And it's as good as simple things like someone was stuck in the lift, they called them. So it's not just work related, it's celebrating little things that the team did.
Yep.
But what is really interesting is we're only celebrating wins, things that went well, things that we expected a result and we got it, or we built it, won a new client. But we're not embracing as a firm now thinking about it. Maybe we need to publicize when we've lost a client and why did we lose the client? Was it because of poor service? Was it because they outgrew the practice and what are we going to do about that? And I feel like that actually has way more thought leading it makes you think more. So when you celebrate a success, you get this feel good for about 10 seconds
Yeah.
and everyone gives a high five.
Yeah.
But there's not as much thinking that
Yes.
goes on
You need to
post it.
dissect.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Whereas when you go, hey, we screwed this up
Yeah.
and we learned this and da-da-da-da-da, I feel like everyone thinks, geez, how can I get involved? You
Yeah.
straight away go into problem solving
Yeah.
mode. I really think that's really powerful.
Yeah.
Already I'm implementing that. Friday shout outs. I might lead and go and shout out an F up there. And yeah, and I think that I love the idea of the leader, the CEO goes first, because he embraces and pretty much tells the audience it's okay.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go
human
first.
too.
Correct.
Yeah. CEO is just a title. I also make mistakes. I'm not afraid to acknowledge them and show you what I learned from them.
And where in your case, have you been involved in a company where you've come in where the change that you're looking at implementing is make or break? And I'd love to hear a story where you were involved in a company where they had to implement a change, and if they didn't get it right, it was going to be detrimental to their business. Is there a story you could share? You don't have to give names of the companies, but I'd love to hear a dialogue around how that story played out in your involvement.
100%. Oh, I'm happy to name names. It's not private. WA Police. So WA Police, and that literally was life or death. Like, can you imagine someone calls 000 and you send a helicopter in the wrong direction? Yeah. Or you send it to the house next door, and when someone's getting robbed? So that was a technology transformation. It was like a heart and lung transplant. So it was their main artery that connected Department of Justice, mental health services, child protection services, et cetera, et cetera. So it was very delicate. 6,500 police officers, 2,500 civilians, and that particular piece of software kept the entire state of WA, like 1.7 million people. That's what helped keep them safe and enabled them to respond, audit, track, and manage 000 calls. So that was a long project. That was about 2 years, one of my most fulfilling. When you think police, you just think, on the beat, trolling Burke Street, but I got to hang out with the canine police. I got to see the mounted police with the horses, got on the water with the water police, and I could see in real time how they interacted with the technology and what I could do to make it easier when they were responding to 000 calls of distress.
And what's the most difficult type of change? I mean, we talked about technology there. 2 years ago, we did an overhaul of our software and implemented a new practice management software. Look, it had its challenges. We were very lucky. We are a bunch of accountants. Everything we do is use the software. So we felt that we were going for an upgrade. So the way we managed that change was we had pretty much a really robust system. It was just outdated. It was like driving a 1990 Rolls Royce. It was still, smelled good. It was, but it was a Rolls Royce. Wasn't going so fast. Wasn't as efficient.
Yeah.
And when we moved from that Rolls Royce to the new software, we kind of pitched it a little bit like you're going into a, maybe not a Ferrari, but maybe a Mazda CX-5. It's convertible, it's quick, it's nippy, it's fun. It's going to have fuel efficiency and you're going to love enjoying driving this. And I feel like that was the catalyst of the excitement that came about. And look, we did have our ups and downs, but I feel like the biggest downfall in companies is they're just scared to change the heartbeat of what the business does in terms of the software they use. When you get involved in software transformation projects where fundamentally it's going to change the way people work, what is the messaging that you try to portray to the organization and how do you set that up?
It depends on the organization, but the messaging is around about improving service levels, improving productivity, freeing you up from boring manual work. Let's help you use your brain a bit more. Being competitive, obviously, because I bet all your competitors are investing in software. So if you don't, you're going to be left behind. And it's really about also, even though people don't see it immediately, it's about helping them become future fit as well. It's giving them technology skills.
Well, let's change it up. You've brought a couple of things with you today to the podcast. There's your book, The Future Fit, which I want to talk about. But I'm really interested in the Future Talk. Got a little box there. It's a card game, I believe.
It is a card game.
Is it a long card game? Can we have a crack at it now? How does it work?
So you'll see, it's like a workshop in a box. You'll see 6 different icons there, right? And these icons represent a category of change where you should be asking these sort of questions. So it's not for me to play with you, but it's for you to play with your teams, because often change happens one conversation at a time and most changes fail because leaders don't know the questions to ask and how to ask them. or their direct reports don't, and people get defensive, they get their backs up, etc. So they've got questions literally that I ask my clients, such as describe a turning point in a previous change initiative. It uncovers a lot of things within your organization. So what's a common misconception people have about change? So I created this toolkit because there's only one of me, but so many people need to have this in their toolkit because, like you said, every organization's changing, every industry. The people that manage it well versus the people that don't, that's what's going to separate the winners from the woeful.
And just to describe it a little bit more for those that are listening. So how does it work? You got a box of cards, there's 6 parts. And if you were to implement the learning of that, is it done at the management level? How does it get integrated? How do you utilize the cards?
So there's 6 categories, 86 questions in total. So there's a few ways you can slice and dice it. I've actually used this one-on-one with CEOs. What I find having a box of cards does is it gamifies the process. It's a lot less intimidating when you're pointing at a card discussing the challenge rather than me asking you, hey, describe a whatever. So you can either take one card from each category at random, or you can just focus on one. You know, like one of the cards is perspectives. Maybe you want to get really deep into people's perspectives. So you just focus on that one category and pick 3 cards from that. So I do have guidance on how to use it, but the people that have bought this, they've used it in really intriguing ways. Like I've had a lot of recruiters actually send me a DM and say, you know what, these are great to see candidates, how they think on their feet in job interviews, how they respond to change. I was like, oh, I didn't create it with that in mind. So it's a tool and there's many ways that you can use this tool.
I love it. I'm going to definitely buy one of those. It's interesting because sometimes we don't know how to ask the questions and we kind of make it up as we go. And having something like that with so many questions, you can read it and then really apply it. But what you've done there is actually categorize it into different parts of how change works. I really like that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the book, The Future Fit. It's a bestseller. What made you write the book and how did that process go?
First of all, 3 years ago, I did a TED Talk called The Truth About Future Fitness. So it went really well. It's on TED.com where only 1% of the best talks are housed. And people kept on asking me more questions about it. Like, what did you mean by this? Can you show me an example, or how would I apply this in my organization? So I thought, geez, if people are that intrigued in my 15-minute TED Talk, I've turned my 15-minute TED Talk into a 15-chapter book. So the book came out 2 years ago, following shortly after the TED Talk. So it's a blueprint to help guide leaders on how they can build future fit organizations. How do they need to lead? What are the structures they need to have in place? What are the skill sets they should be looking for? So it unpacks in a lot more detail and granularity what I talked about.
And reflecting on your career, what's the biggest leadership lesson you've learnt that still guides you today?
I've learned really what not to do by some of the world's worst bosses. The first is don't not get to know your team members. So I remember one guy who would never say hello to anybody. As soon as he arrives in the office, would go into his office, shut the door, and never be seen again. Like we just felt we were adrift, floating around with no direction. And he didn't know some people's names. So if you don't get to know your team members, they won't give you 110%. Number 2 is don't be a credit thief. It's really about the collective, and leaders that are seen to be just myself and I are not going to get very far. And number 3 is that book smarts will only take you so far, but you need to build your other smarts as well, your emotional smarts and your relationship smarts. So the best leaders have all 3.
I think I do get to know you well. And I have a partner in our office that is very conscious of taking people outside of the organization, whether it's a walk and talk or a coffee. He's really good at that. He's very good at the people side. And you talked about relationship Q or the RQ, which we'll talk about as well. But how do we do that? If you're not comfortable in your skin or you're genuinely not good at getting to know people, or that's something that's a weakness, what are some of the systemized ways of can we get to know our employees better? Because there is that challenge between boss and employee, and sometimes you got to break through those barriers. So there isn't those barriers and the staff can open up and share with you what they're thinking. How do we unlock that for those that are uncomfortable in that space?
The first is to gamify it for sure. So whether it's every team meeting, you ask a non-work related question. So give your people the opportunity to open up. So I don't know if predominantly your business is in the office or maybe you rely on Slack. So Slack has great integrations that every week they pick a random question, like personal related question, and everybody answers it. It could be best movie you've seen this year. So create little opportunities like that to get to know people outside of the workplace.
I actually did this thing where we had a new management group. There was a few changes in the management group. And every sort of week we would get together for a very quick 30-minute session. And I felt the group was like, I wouldn't call them bored, but there was no connection. And they hadn't really gotten a chance to connect themselves and really find out who's who in the zoo. I thought, I've got to change this up. Something's weird here. I just feel like there's something off. Before we get into the meeting, just to build some energy in the room, and I did this, and I think it really worked well. I said, let's go around the room, and there's some people in this room that have been in the organization 10 plus years, and it's going to be maybe harder for them. I want you to tell me something that the room may not know about you. And it was really cool because, and I went first, and I don't think any of my clients probably know this, but I love to draw. So I got this passion for drawing and coloring when my youngest daughter was growing up and she loved to draw and color. And as I was doing that with her, I picked up this passion for drawing. So I have this little book at home that I draw with my pencils and colors and stuff like that. And they're like, Savan, I also paint. And it sort of unlocked some conversations around connection.
Yes.
And when we went around the room, we found that people played a musical instrument that we didn't know. Some people had never left the state, and it was just basic stuff. But it really started to build this connection. And I think there's a lot of ways to do it. You don't have to be people's best friend,
100%.
but to get to know someone, you can really go out and be creative in your thinking to bring that up. So
you can.
I love that.
And even another great way, which is similar to what you said, it works whether you're in the office together or you're fully remote. You say, okay, you have 30 seconds, grab something in the room that represents you.
Oh, I like that one.
Everyone's like a mad scrambler. And it's so interesting, the things that people grab. You know, it could be like a knitted thing that their grandmother made, or it could be their favorite mug. Again, it helps offer green shoots of connection.
It is cool. Looking ahead, obviously there's a lot of change happening with AI and technology is moving so fast.
Yeah.
How does your business and what you do for organizations, what's happening in your world? You must be way more in demand today than I feel like than you were in the past.
Yeah, holy
because
cow.
of that. Can we clone you? So tell us about how you're seeing the world and this change that's happening in the world, and how does that fueling into the companies now?
You've hit the nail on the head. Everyone's talking about AI, scared of it, excited about it. So most of my speaking engagements spoken at Hong Kong, Singapore, I'm going to the Philippines next month. So the topic is about AI transformation. How do you get people ready for it? How do you make sure they're not worried they get automated out of a job? How do you roll it out properly? So that's really the $64 million question. In terms of other things that I'm working on, it's really about leading that sort of transformation during times of disruption, because that is what's happening nowadays. Asia, where I'm based for most of the year, moves very, very fast. So I find a lot of the challenges there are unique, like multi-generational workforces. They've got people in their 60s and 70s working, but Indonesia, where I live for most of the time, it's got a very high population of Gen Z and millennials. Nearly 30% of the population is young. But when they're not getting that early career experience, because a lot of firms are relying on AI, they're not hiring youngsters like that anymore. So what are we going to do there? Like, what do we need to put in place in terms of education programs, etc.?
Can we unpack that a little bit? Just on the first one, how do you get ready for AI? What do you, when you talk to organizations, and the first thing is you got to embrace it, you got to get ready for it. What can organizations do to be ready?
I think the first is to really be clear on what the objective is. Is it to reduce costs? Is it to exceed customer service levels? Is it to reduce processing times? Just because there's an AI for that doesn't mean you should implement it. So I think being clear on that, what the objective is. Number two would be, what is it going to do? What isn't it going to do? I don't like to say it's artificial intelligence. I like to call it augmented intelligence, because really it's helping us do our jobs better. So drawing the line in the sand, this is what the worker will do. This is what AI can do. So making sure that they're on board with that and everybody's clear about it. And last but not least, communicate early, transparently, timelines, what's going to change, what's not going to change, and giving people the opportunity to ask questions and asking them the right questions. Because often they're like, oh, here, it's a great news story and it's going to save us all time. And they don't understand why people are scared. It's a human reaction, and you need to allow the opportunity for people to process at their own pace.
Yeah.
Of course, you as a leader can help that pace go faster by communicating clearly, coaching them, role modeling, having a single source of truth so there's no gossip flying around. Have one source of truth so everybody has the same information. It sounds really simple, but it's not simple because people forget, they drop the ball, and hence why you get all this fear happening in an organization.
Friska, as part of doing my research, I had to do a little bit of digging on your background, and I got onto your Instagram page. Love it. Your travels and where you work is so exciting. But one of the videos that really caught my eye was around IQ and EQ. And we talk about that in our organization a lot. You can be seriously smart, have a high IQ, but if your EQ is a bit sort of on the lower end and you don't understand behaviors and human behaviors, it can be challenging even if you're really intelligent. But I've never heard the term RQ. And you did a video. I'd love to watch it and dive a bit more into that if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, story time, guys. You've heard of IQ and you've probably heard of EQ, but let me tell you a story why RQ, relational intelligence, is the game changer. I once walked into a meeting where everyone disagreed. Tension thick. Instead of pushing my agenda, I listened. I asked a question that everybody wanted to ask, but was too scared to. Now, the way I asked it was what got me the impact that I needed. By the end, the two most stubborn, influential leaders were aligned, and I didn't even raise my voice. So that is RQ. It's not about being charming or assertive. It's the skill of reading the room, adapting your message, paying attention to how it's being delivered, and building trust on the fly. In hybrid teams, across cultures, in high-stakes moments, RQ will give you that edge. So yes, be smart, be sassy, be emotionally aware, but if you want real influence that transcends boundaries, start mastering RQ.
I love that video. I reckon I watched that a few times just to get a feel for it. What does it mean? Take us through RQ, relational Q. Take us through what you mean by that. How do we learn it?
It's your ability to start, deepen, help relationships flourish in your personal and professional life. And where I first learned it, it's quite interesting. So I'm an only child. My parents passed away when I was very young, never knew them. I never had RQ growing up because I was always surrounded by books and dolls and surrounded by adults, not really many children my age. And when I started entering the workforce, I noticed that the people that got ahead, they weren't smarter than me, but they were really good at becoming buddies with decision makers and influential people. I was like, God, how do I build that? And because I was very shy and introverted, I realized I lacked the skills. I actually tried to find an actual course on it. I couldn't find anything. So during my MBA days, I actually got a job at a luxury jewelry company to build the skills because I saw the head of sales in action. I was like, man, he was so smooth. So smooth. Like, how do you do that? And it seemed so natural to him, whereas I felt awkward. So I spent a year there just learning how to speak to people from different walks of life. And I chose very high end because that's who I wanted to be comfortable with. These execs of billion-dollar companies, like leading entire geographies, et cetera, et cetera. So I saw what he did. Like, he paid attention to detail. He was really customized, really tailored, and he remembered the follow-up, like the art of the follow-up. And I wrote everything down. And coming with no sales background, like, I exceeded my sales targets every month. And I remember I was sweating bullets because the most expensive thing I ever sold was more expensive than my apartment. It was a Hublot watch.
Wow.
And it was because I developed RQ, because I kept in touch with this person. I remembered the details. I followed up, and he came back in the store and he asked for me and he just whacked it on his black Amex. And I was like, whoa.
And that's fun. And have you since found books or things that are out there that talk about that? Or how do someone that might have IQ or EQ or either or and wants to just take it to another level and build their RQ?
So there's a few thought leaders that I follow. So Esther Perel, I'm a huge fan of. Esther Perel, Brene Brown, and there's a book I recently read called Magic Words. So even though it's not strictly RQ, they all talk about relationships and how to communicate with meaning and conviction. and really how to develop trust with different people.
So we talked about all the good things that go on and the things we must do, but in trying our best, we make mistakes. And what are the things you see, the horror stories, the mistakes people do that just makes the world of change even more difficult?
The first would be trying to DIY everything. There's a reason why they're change experts. We're not an expense, we're an investment. It's actually to help you be more productive. If you've never done change before, it'll mind-boggling how many people think they can do it because they think, it's just a bit of fluffy comms or it's just a bit of training. It's actually a structured, rigorous approach to reprogram people's beliefs and perceptions. So there's an art to it. Number two would be, especially in the cases of large-scale technology transformations, they disband the project team too early. They think, system's in, job done, everybody go home. But just because it's in doesn't mean people are productive using it, doesn't mean they're proficient. So it doesn't mean you're getting those cost savings that you stipulated in your business case. So disbanding the project team too early is like if you smashed a broken bowl, you super glued it, then you used it immediately to serve yourself hot soup. Doesn't work. There's going to be cracks. It's going to break. Number three would be not getting the right person to lead your transformation or change effort. So just because they're the most senior person in the room doesn't mean they're the best person for it. And last but not least, not inviting a wider array of perspectives and voices to help you co-create your strategy together, because we've all got blind spots. So just making sure you've got the right people in the room to make sure your change is robust.
I think I can talk to you forever. But before I let you go, I'd love to know sort of any exciting projects you're looking forward to coming up. Is there another TED Talk maybe or another book? What's the horizon for you in the rest of this financial year or the rest of this year?
I have been asked to do another book focusing on the Middle East because they are going through quite a significant cultural as well as a digital transformation. I'm deliberating on that. In terms of other things coming up for the rest of the year, I've got quite a few technology conferences that I'm speaking at, and I'm working on a playbook for aspiring business owners, professionals, to help them elevate their brand, be seen by the right client profile, because every week I get DMs about, how did you create all these products? How did you do this? How did you do that? So not strictly about change, but more what you can do as a business owner on an individual perspective. So that's a playbook that I'm working on for the rest of the year.
Amazing. So much going on, and you've been fortunate enough, and I've been fortunate, and our listeners have been fortunate enough for you to join us here on The Bottom Line today. You are a Melbourne girl. I only live around the corner, but you do travel a lot. I'm very fortunate that you were able to join me in person today. We love change management at Alexander Spencer. We embrace it. We don't do it well all the time, but I think if you get it right with what's happening in the world, I think businesses can really flourish. You do amazing work, and I want to say thank you so much for joining me on The Bottom Line today, and I wish you all the best with all these projects that are going on.
Thanks for having me.
This is The Bottom Line, a show designed to help Australian businesses succeed. This podcast was produced by accountancy firm Alexander Spencer. At Alexander Spencer, we've been helping business owners realise their goals since 1952, and we play a pivotal role in developing, implementing, and supervising the business goals and strategies of our clients. To find out how we can help your business succeed, head to our website, alexanderspencer.com.au. To make sure you don't miss an episode of The Bottom Line, be sure to subscribe to or follow the show in your podcast app. And while you're there, leave us a 5-star review. It really helps others find the show. I'm Savan Tuna, and we'll be back next episode with more tips to help you transform your business. And that's The Bottom Line.